You found yourself on another edition of Let 'Em Know Kings United, and on today's episode, it was a tough, rough road trip out west for the Chicago Bulls, but they salvaged the road trip, winning their fourth straight game against Portland for the first time since 1998, and they got a much-needed win on top of that, heading back to the United Center. We got a lot to talk about right here on Let 'Em Know Kings United. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for the post-game reaction podcast of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Sacramento Kings, and the Chicago Bulls. This is Let 'Em Know Kings United. Let 'em know, Nation. You already know what time it is. Welcome to another edition of Let 'em Know Kings United, your Cleveland Cavaliers, Sacramento Kings, and Chicago Bulls post-game reaction podcast. And I am your host, Scarlett Weisberg. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into today's program. And you can find Let 'em Know Kings United, which is 100% completely free and available on Amazon Music, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Radio Public, Pandora, wherever else you want to listen to this show. Give the show a follow on those platforms if you can, please. Turn on your notifications so you know about the next episode. Please rate, spread the word out to your friends, and give Let 'Em Know Kings United a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. It is a great way to support the podcast, and I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in. And we are almost to 400 plays of Let 'Em Know Kings United, which is absolutely insane. So I want to thank each and every one of you again for the love and support. And to every member of Let 'Em Know Nation, you know how much I love and appreciate every single one of you. Bulls win. Bulls salvaged a really difficult road trip. I mean, you can argue the Phoenix Suns game was a very winnable game for the Chicago Bulls, but Kevin Durant was doing Kevin Durant things. And then obviously the LA Lakers, they just got hot from three-point range. They were shooting the tar out of the basketball, and we just couldn't stop whatever run the LA Lakers tried to produce against us. But as far as this game, listen, the Bulls needed a win. I mean, you can't go back to the United Center on Tuesday, tomorrow, against the Toronto Raptors, losing 3 straight on a West Coast road trip. 3 games in 8 days. I know it's a difficult stretch for the Bulls, and I completely understand that. But if the Bulls lost this game, I would have been talking something else about this episode. I would have been saying stuff like the Bulls are not competitive, the Bulls don't want it, the Bulls are just lackadaisical, all of that. Was it pretty? No, it wasn't. I mean, the first half I thought we were really good. I thought the game plan in the first half was attacking the paint and getting shots from mid-range and inside. The Bulls did a really good job for the first half. That third quarter, I think we were lackadaisical. If I can be straight up honest, we turned into the Chicago Settlers in the third quarter. We were settling for threes, and we were just not doing what brought us to the dance. And what brought us to the dance was shooting the ball really well from mid-range and getting the ball inside. Now, the Portland Trailblazers, they didn't do well either. They didn't do well shooting from three-point range. So the three-point shooting in this game was very non-existent. Very non-existent. And by the way, the Portland Trailblazers outscored the Chicago Bulls 33-23 in the third quarter, and the Bulls had a 1.76-75 lead going into the fourth. And this was a game that I thought the Bulls were playing to the level of the Portland Trailblazers. If I got to be completely honest, I think we played to Portland's tempo instead of our tempo. I mean, this was a game that we should have been up by like 15, 20, maybe 25 at best. Maybe get some bench guys in there. But speaking of bench guys, there was a lot of guys for the Bulls that stepped up last night. I mean, Julian Phillips, I am really impressed about what this kid did. I mean, offensively, he made some really clutch threes. He was shooting the ball really well. But what I really love about Julian Phillips is he moves without the ball. I want every single Chicago Bulls player to learn from Julian Phillips because this dude knows how to create shots without the ball. He was doing great moving without the ball. He was doing an awesome job cutting to the basket, which I really like. And he had the most disrespectful, the most nastiest block I've ever seen in my life. He could have caught that ball and credited that block as an offensive rebound. That block by Julian Phillips was absolutely crazy. Ayo Dosunmu really stepped up last night for the Chicago Bulls. He was in the starting lineup because Patrick Williams, he missed this game due to a foot injury, and he is going to get his foot check going back to Chicago. I think as of this recording, the Bulls are back in the United Center in Chicago right now. I think Patrick Williams is still figuring out his foot situation, but I do expect Julian Phillips to play tomorrow's game against the Raptors. This is a game, to me, that Kobe White, Julian Phillips, Ayo Dosunmu, and DeMar DeRozan really impressed for the Bulls, and they salvaged a really difficult road trip, and they got a win that they desperately needed. They needed this win. Was it a must-win game for the Bulls last night against the Blazers? If you want to call it that, sure, but I don't think it's a necessary must-win for the Bulls. I think this was a win that you needed to get yourself right back on track, and then you get yourself looking good going into the next two games because you got two very winnable games. You got a Toronto Raptors team that you beat up in the paint in Toronto a couple of weeks ago that I expect that the Bulls to do that again, and then you got a Hornets team which honestly looks a lot different without Terry Rozier. They got Kyle Lowry on their team, which I think he's a little bit mid and a little bit average, but they still got LaMelo Ball, who is an absolute stud. So the Charlotte game is going to be the more unpredictable game than this Toronto game tomorrow, but I do expect that the Bulls will win both of them and then maybe get back to one game below 500 going against the Sacramento Kings, which would be a really good test for this young and scrappy Bulls team. DeMar DeRozan, he definitely led the way for the Bulls. He finished with 20 points on the night. Kobe White, if he's not in your most improved player category, or if any of the coaches in the NBA right now are not voting for Kobe White as most improved player, then I don't know what you've been watching, and I don't know what the heck you're doing because Kobe White has been absolutely hooping as of late. He finished with 15 points and 10 assists, playing the last of a short 3-game road trip. Andre Drummond came off the bench with 15 big-time points. Ayo Dosunmu played a really big game. He hit a clutch three-pointer with 21 seconds left and sealed this big-time win. The Bulls were never able to extend their lead by more than 11 points and made just 8 of 32 three-point shot attempts, relied on defense for the victory, and the defense, I got to give them credit. The defense stepped up. Billy Donovan said, I really thought we tried to share the ball. I think 27 assists on the number of threes that we generated, that we just didn't shoot the ball really well. But I give the guys credit. We hung in there defensively. The defense stepped up. They made some clutch steals late. I talked about this earlier. Julian Phillips with the most nastiest, disgustiest block I've ever seen in my life. Ayo Dosunmu made a big-time block too. So the offense didn't show up for the Bulls, but defensively, I thought they gave themselves a chance to win this game in that end. Jeremy Grant led the Portland Trailblazers with 24 points. DeAndre Ayton, I gotta be honest, DeAndre Ayton was cooking Nikola Vucevic all night. I know Vuce had like a 20-point game, but like, come on now. Come on, Vooch, you were pathetic last night. I'm not gonna let you pass because you got 20 points on the night. You got cooked. You got cooked and deep fried by DeAndre Ayton all night long. I think this was Vooch's worst game of the season, to be completely honest. But it was a win, so I'm not mad about it. But Vooch, that was pathetic. That was really, truly pathetic. Dosumu said, anytime you get a win, it always feels good. It just feels good because of the work I put into it. Vooch trusting me. He could have easily just shot it because he's a veteran and an all-star, but he trusted me to make the right play, and he did. And the Bulls, like I said at the top of the show, were without Patrick Williams, who has a sore left foot and is scheduled to undergo imaging in Chicago before there is a timeline for return. So we're going to see some more minutes of Julian Phillips, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't watched last night and saw Julian Phillips play, you better get used to it, because this kid, in a couple years, if he gets more muscle in him, if he hits the weight room a lot more, he's going to be a big-time star for the Bulls in the future. Williams averaging 10 points a game, played on Thursday against Los Angeles when he fell to the Lakers. His absence impacted the Bulls without Zach LaVine and Torrey Craig. Grant and Ricky Scoot Henderson were game-time decisions for Portland, but they both played. Portland hitting in second to last in the Western Conference, have struggled throughout January with injuries and illness. And again, this Portland team, they struggled from three. Both teams struggled from three. 8 of 32 for the Bulls compared to 6 of 33 for Portland. It wasn't the game of the night if you like three-point shooting. If you're a three-point shooting aficionado, I apologize. This game was dreadful for three-point range for both teams. Jeremy Grant said, we know we got the players capable of putting up numbers, scoring from outside, from the inside. We just have to figure it out. I really don't have the answers for that, but we're definitely capable. Man, listen. Portland, they're a young team, but they got some growing pains in right now. They got some growing pains because they've been dealing with injuries and illnesses for most of the year. And Chauncey Billups, I believe in him. I know that a lot of people that might listen to the show right now, you might be thinking Julian Phillips Chauncey Billups. I'm sorry. Chauncey Billups is terrible. He's a really bad coach. No, he's not. He's an NBA legend. He's one of the best shooting guards in the modern era of basketball. Possibly the greatest point guard in Detroit Pistons history. He's missed a big shot for a freaking reason. So I have all the faith of the world in Chauncey Billups, but unfortunately, the Portland Trail Blazers got some growing pains right now. As far as the Bulls, hey, this was a much-needed win that the defense and DeMar DeRozan led the way big time. They shot 46% for the field compared to 40% from the field for the Portland Trailblazers. Both teams really struggled from three-point range. 25% for the Bulls, 18% for the Portland Trailblazers. It was just bad. The free throw disparity, absolutely atrocious this game. 29 attempts for the free throw line for Portland, knocking 90% compared to 70% for the Bulls, 12 of 17. I mean, the refs were calling every single darn foul for the Portland Trailblazers and not a single damn foul for the Chicago Bulls. I'm not going to argue with it, but you got to do better in getting to the free throw line if you're Chicago. You got to be more aggressive than that. It's not just the officials. You got to be aggressive enough to get to the foul line, and I think the lack of aggression really hurt the Bulls this game, despite the fact that the defense played a big part in this win. The rebounds, 48-40 advantage for the Portland Trailblazers. The assists, 27-22 in favor of the Bulls. The steals were 7-2 in favor of the Bulls. The blocks were 10-5 in favor of the Bulls. The Bulls did a really good job of taking care of the ball with only 5 turnovers on the night. They had 2 turnovers for most of the game, but they were a little sloppy in the third quarter, but they were able to lock back in and take care of business. The Bulls dominated the paint 52-40, but you could have argued that if they went to the paint all night and not settled for threes in that third quarter, we would have had a 60, 65, maybe a 70-point night when it comes into the paint. The fast break points were 15-4 in favor of the Chicago Bulls. It could have done more, but you know what? Hey, I'll take whatever I can get. DeMar DeRozan, he led the Bulls in scoring 20 points. He was 8 of 14 for the field with 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and a steal. He was also 1 for 2 from three-point range. Nikola Vucevic, 14 points, a plus-minus, a +4, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 of 14 for the field, 0 for 4 from three-point range. I mean, come on. Vooch, you gotta stop with the threes. I know you want to be like a 3-and-deep type of center, but come on now. Like, come on. We don't need you to make threes. We need you to get into the mid-range and focus on the paint. You are, you eat in the paint. You eat in the paint, Vooch. Why don't you focus on that instead of chucking up threes all darn night, okay? Kobe White, he had another good game. 15 points, 7 to 19 for the field. He was 1 for 9 from 3, but he impacted the game in many different ways. He had 9 assists, 5 rebounds. He had 9 assists, 5 rebounds on the night. 5 rebounds on the night with a steal. Alex Caruso, 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 of 7 for the field. Ayo Dosunmu, 11 points, including a big time 3. He had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and he had 3 big time blocks, including a nasty one towards the end of the game. Julian Phillips, this kid, let me tell you something. This kid impressed the living hell out of me. 11 points, 2 rebounds, a big-time block, one of the most disgusting blocks I've ever seen in my freaking life. He was 4 of 7 for the field, and Andre Drummond, the big cat, is back with 15.7 rebounds, 6-11 for the field off the bench. He was 3 for 3 from the free throw line. The big cat made his free throws, and I'm really happy to see that. Jeremy Grant led the Portland Trailblazers with 24 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 of 12 for the field. DeAndre Ayton, he was cooking Vooch all night. 22 points, 9 of 12 for the field with 12 rebounds, an assist, and a big-time block. Anthony Simons was limited to only 11 points on the night, 4 of 15 for the field, 2 of 7 from three-point range with 8 assists, 7 rebounds. So we did a really good job defending him. Malcolm Brogdon did really well for the Portland Trailblazers with 16 points and 6 rebounds and 6 assists. But ultimately, it was the big defense for the Chicago Bulls that helped us salvage the road trip and got a big, much-needed W. I hope the Bulls can build on it. That's my only wish for the Bulls now. I hope we can build on this and get back to 2 or 1 game below 500. We got an opportunity to do that against 2 winnable teams. Toronto tomorrow and Charlotte on Wednesday. Let's capitalize on these 2 games and let's stand on business. That's going to do it for today's edition of Let 'Em Know Kings United. You can find this show on Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Dial Radio, Spotify, Radio Public, Pandora, wherever else you want to listen to the show. Give the show a follow on those platforms. Turn on your notifications so you know about the next episode. Please rate, spread the word out to your friends, and give Let 'Em Know Kings United a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. I am your host, Tyler Weisberg. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time for another edition of Let 'Em Know Kings United.